You'll see just above the fireplace in the main room of the community center, there are a series of tiles up there, and one of them has been discovered as a Pewabic tile from Pewabic Pottery, founded in Detroit in 1903. Eric Graham, we'll start with you from Pewabic Pottery. Tell us a little bit about these Pewabic tiles and what makes them so unique.
Sure. So actually, the entire installation there above the fireplace is Pewabic pottery, and was donated by our founder back in 1916. And it includes a various array of, along with mosaic, includes a various array of embossed iridescent tiles, along with some of our famous historic drip glazes and things like that. So it's just a wonderful thing, definitely, to have, as a part of the Sylvan Lake community. Kind of reviewing a bit of our history as well. We were founded in 1903 by Mary Chase Perry, later Stratton, an artist and educator, and Horace Calkins, a prominent dental supplier and kiln manufacturer. And to give us some context, Pewabic was founded the same year as Ford Motor Company. So it's definitely been around for a long time, and we're happy to still be going. It originally started out in an old stable studio in the Brush Park district of Detroit and moved to our current location in 1907 after our founders expanded to the tile making business. Our founder, Mary, really began to grow with the ingredients and really wanted to know the what and why of the processes of glazing and creating pottery, even referring to her formula book as her most intimate friend. The first years were highly experimental as they went through many tests and trials, even many failures. However, I think to even their own surprise, the public really liked the look of the handmade tiles and items versus the mechanically made items during what was the golden age of the arts and crafts movement. Throughout our history, we definitely became mostly known for our architectural tile, which can be found throughout Metro Detroit and far beyond. This includes our iridescent glazes, like I mentioned in particular, which we are proud enough to still be producing today. Our founder received inspiration from the art of the Middle East in her quest to kind of replicate those dichroic surfaces that you see even in the installation there in Sylvan Lake. She would spray kerosene into the kiln at its peak temperature, which would cause a flash reduction environment, leaving different effects on the pottery surface and glazes. We still use the original clay mixer from 1912 in our current production as well, which would have been used to make those tiles there in the mosaic. And we've learned a lot about ceramic materials and their impact on the human body. So we did have to reformulate all of our historic glazes and no longer use those original recipes for safety reasons. But Pewabic really does hold a lot of nostalgia and warm feeling for Detroiters and even beyond today. We have many people who come in and discuss how they remember Pewabic tile in their grandparents' home, or that it's a tradition for them to purchase Pewabic for each other at the holidays, or even those that just remember our building being across the street from the Detroit Waterworks Park as a child. Many of the original staff stayed at Pewabic for their entire careers, and we even hear from many of their family members and descendants today. So for me, I'd say that's just an example of the pride of our employees that they've passed on to future generations. And Pewabic was also essentially founded by a woman in a time which was quite unheard of and almost impossible. So after 121 years, it's definitely an inspiration for the Sylvan Lake community to have a piece of that in one of her installations. And
Eric
it's
Graham
also
is with us
very
on the Splash Live alongside Helen Jane Peters, talking about the Pewabic tile that is in the Sylvan Lake Community Center, as Eric said, donated back in 1916. And Helen Jane, with that being 108 years ago, this being one of the early Pewabic tiles that's become a historic gem of the Metro Detroit area, what significance does it have to the city of Sylvan Lake?
Well, it was originally put in the Detroit Free Press Fresh Air Camp Activities Building in 1916. So that dates the building as well, I think, because the fireplace would have been built at the same time as the building. So that's very, very interesting. And the building next door was the dining hall was designed by Albert Kahn, which we did not know until after it was raised, which is very sad. But those are two prominent Detroit people, Albert Kahn and Mary Chase Perry. So it's, and to really know for sure, I have done a lot of research, had done until I met Eric, and who knows everything about Pewabic pottery. But he contacted me about 2 weeks ago, and we've been going back and forth with what we know, and he's added to my knowledge greatly. And then the big thing just last week was finding a newspaper article that gives us the exact date of, maybe not exact, but the date of when the tile was put in the fireplace. So this picture shows actually the removing of the tile from the old activities building to save and put into our new community center. Here's the man removing the tile for safekeeping, which we are thrilled to have.
And it does have a really interesting story of how it got from its former facility into now the Sylvan Lake Community Center. And that really tells the story there, the intricacy that went into moving that part of the old fireplace into that new fireplace that was designed really, Helen Jane, to mimic what was in that former building on that same location.
That's right. I really wanted to use fieldstone like they used in the old fireplace, but I was voted down. But we are very happy that we fought for the tile to be put in the new fireplace. So that was exciting.
And Eric, please continue.
That was put in 2008 when the building was completed.
And Eric, I understand that there's a bit of a connection between these tiles here in Sylvan Lake, both the original that is now in the community center and some of the other Pewabic tiles across our local area. Can you give us a little bit more insight into that connection?
Sure. So absolutely. The original designs, obviously, that are encompassed in the installation there in Sylvan Lake are still used at times. We still have all of our original historic molds. So those original shapes can be found in other installations across the U.S. Particularly, we have many in the Detroit area, such as the curved entranceways and windows in the Guardian building in downtown Detroit. The Detroit Institute of Arts, many public schools, healthcare institutions, along with many libraries and churches. Unfortunately, many installations over the years have been demolished, but that's why we're working hard to keep track of our historic installations across the world. So really, if anyone out there knows of any or thinks that they know of any historic installation of ours, we'd love to hear from you.
And Eric, just for a little bit more insight on that, given that this is an early age Pewabic tile from Pewabic Pottery, how rare is it for one of these to still be in existence from over 100 years ago?
So the good thing is Pewabic has always held, a nostalgic and special name in the hearts of many Detroiters. So as long as it was identified as Pewabic, we find that many have been able to be saved. We do hear of many that have been, say, demolished or painted over, things like that, regretfully. But definitely that time frame, 1916, and especially one of Mary's earlier mosaic examples, it's definitely a special thing to still have that around. I would say it's on the rarer side.
Eric Graham is with us from Pewabic Pottery alongside Helen Jane Peters, Sylvan Lake's historian, on today's edition of The Splash Live, talking about a piece of history and a piece of art right in your own community center on Pontiac Drive in Sylvan Lake, a piece of Pewabic tile in the fireplace embedded there at the Sylvan Lake Community Center. And Helen Jane, this kind of parallels some other pieces of art that have some historical significance to Sylvan Lake at other parts of the city. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe a few others that are have some backstory to them in the city of Sylvan Lake? I know that one of those is a painting over at City Hall.
Yes, I was just going to tell you, Eric also thinks that the fireplace in Whitfield School may have been had Pewabic tile in it. We always thought that there's a little tile of a cat And we always thought that was probably Pewabic. Well, Eric does not think that was because they didn't make tiles like that one. But maybe the tiles on the front of the fireplace could have been Pewabic. And unfortunately, that building was razed in 2003. But above the fireplace is a painting of Mary and her little lamb, which was painted by Roy Gamble, another Detroit artist. So we are very fortunate, and I'm going to do a program about that Mary and her little lamb very soon. So we are very fortunate to have these very special, unique items from over 100 years ago, and they have been preserved and restored, and we're thankful for that, for the people that are interested in having these things remain forever and ever.
We talk a lot about our history here in Greater West Bloomfield. It's pretty unique to be able to see a piece of that history each and every day in one of the centers of our community. Eric, Helen, Jane, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.